are Tailgate Talk. Welcome into the show. I'm Matt Thomas. With me, we've got Kyle Mulwiney, Trent Williams, Kyle Schumann. It's episode 6 for us, but the most important number of the week is 1 because we are 1-0 after a gutsy roller coaster of a ride, 35-31 win out in Purdue on Thursday night. So, guys, how are we feeling? We've had a couple days to digest. How are we feeling?
I'm glad to be wrong on my prediction.
Well, it's not the first time, but
hey,
we'll find out too soon enough.
We'll get more into this, but there were some ugly moments. But at the end of the night, guess what? We're 1-0.
Yeah, I mean, we did not play our best football. You could probably argue Purdue didn't play their best football either, but we walked away with a win, and that is truly all that matters at the end of the day. I imagine our feelings would be a lot different coming on here had we walked away with a loss if just one thing didn't go our way.
Oh, there would not be a podcast, I don't think. I think we would stop after 5 minutes.
That mic would be snapped, I'm sure.
Speaking of which, did one of you guys get that fruit basket out to Jeff Fromm for his, clock management at the end of the game?
It's refreshing that the clock management isn't Penn State's coaches being talked about and James Franklin. For once, it was actually the opposing team.
Yeah. So, all right.
I'm just happy that Trent is able to listen to college football podcasts and read different articles this week.
One more week. Relaxed. Yeah. One more week. I've been wearing Penn State shirts every single day since last Sunday because I figured, you know what, if we lose, I'm not gonna be wearing them. So
you gotta show it off.
I need. Well, it's embarrassment. So I already got Penn State everywhere else in my basement. So I gotta show it off while I can. So, all right. Talked about ugly. Should we hit it up with good, bad, and ugly to get us rolling here?
Let's do it. I mean, before we get into that, I just want to couple things here. I just want to say that one, I don't think we get enough credit or are giving the team enough credit for going on the road, opening up Big Ten play rather than opening up with a team like Ohio this week, opening up with Purdue on the road. And I think it's a big difference now with the transfer portal where you don't get to see what some of these transfer players look like before when you're playing like a team like Purdue in week 1, where it doesn't matter as much with a team like Ohio. So I think although it was sketchy at times, I don't think we're giving the team enough credit for getting that huge victory on the road.
Well, if you would have let me get to my good, maybe I would have had a chance to do that. But no, you just had to cut me off right now.
Well, it's just some discussion.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, there is a lot of stuff that makes me scratch my head, but bottom line is a win and a win. Like Franklin said after the game, it's much better to learn those lessons from a win rather than a loss. So it makes everyone more receptive and to criticism and nowhere to go but up.
And Trent, I was telling you earlier how going on the road Purdue week 1, we going into a hostile environment, crazy fans. I know we're going to preview the Auburn game down there. Don't look too far ahead, but take it 1 week at a time. But still, for the Auburn game, that team went on the road, had an away game, crazy atmosphere. So we are prepared for some of these younger guys going in there. They had seen a crazy atmosphere, so there's that good game experience too.
Yeah, and to bounce off what I was saying, like that, who absolutely torched us was Charlie Jones, and that's the type of guy that transferred in from a non-existent offense. Got Matt.
Did you know that he and Aiden O'Connell grew up 10 miles from each other? They used to play Pee Wee football together. Did you know that?
I did hear that. I'm not sure where I've heard that, but I did hear that. No, but I mean, a guy like that who, I mean, we've seen what Iowa's offense looks like this past weekend. So when you're coming in there, I don't know if anyone's expecting him to look like that. I doubt they in practice leading up to this were expecting to have to key on a guy like that and put our lockdown defender on a guy like that. Versus if we played Purdue in week 3 or something like that, we have 2 games of film to watch that guy on and see how it plays out. So I think that's one thing that's really going to change with the landscape of college football is that week 1 game before you have film on all these transfers coming into their new school to see that outlook and what they're going to look like.
Definitely.
And truthfully, after watching that game, I feel like we've all watched plenty of highlights. I mean, Trent and Matt, I think watched the entire 3-hour YouTube video of it. I think Purdue's for real in the West. I mean, we're talking like Nebraska, Northwest, all these other West teams. throughout the season. But I think Purdue has just as good of a chance as any other Big Ten West teams to run away with that, and I think they're going to give the rest of the teams in their schedule a lot of havoc.
Yeah, now we can be Purdue's biggest fans. Like, just we want them to rack up the wins.
Boiler up, baby.
I think there was, if I'm not mistaken, 7 or 8 lead changes in that game. And to me, it was kind of crazy just to see that either one of those teams, Penn State or Purdue, could have really taken it away and got a double-digit win out of that. But, it just kind of went back and forth. No one really wanted it until Penn State decided to take it at the end.
It was a roller coaster of a game. I mean, you talk about, and that's the analysis I've been using a lot to describe this game. There was a lot of ups and a lot of downs. Not only in the score and the lead changes, like you mentioned, but also in just individual players. I mean, you could look at pretty much every player on the team and find a moment where it's like, what were they thinking? That was god awful. And then later in the game, at some point, they redeemed themselves, and it's like, what an incredible play that makes up for that past mistake. There were a lot of highs and a lot of lows for a lot of individual players, and the offense as a whole and the defense as a whole.
Yeah, you can't believe you wait 9 months every year for Penn State football, and then you get back into it. It's like, I literally, my parents were watching the game with us. I looked at them, I'm like, why did you guys make me a Penn State fan? Like, I hate you guys. Like, why do you do this to me every single year? Like, I just go on this roller coaster ride, but we're 1-0.
Yeah, it was a weird game. It was a weird game. There was a time where I'm sure we're all thinking it's like, I just don't see how we're going to pull out a victory here. And then I personally felt like once we got that lead on that incredible long drive, that there was no way our defense was going to give up any points there. I thought it was solidified. So it was definitely a lot of ups and downs. I'm really interested to see how I think we did improve some. We talked about like Jeff Brom's coaching. I didn't think play calling was too bad this week, and there wasn't any like really head scratching play calls from my point of view. Maybe defensively some, but we just got to get used to Manny Diaz's defense. Offensively, there wasn't, any 4th down quarterback draws or anything like that. That's really like, what are we doing?
I will say I feel like the offense's game plan definitely changed from the first half into the second half. Like, they were really trying to establish the run in the beginning. We kind of saw that 2 runs and then a pass. And then in the second half, they came out throwing the ball. Like, that was, which I don't think they needed to do. I mean, you had a lead. I would have tried to work the run. And that's where I feel like they definitely were really forcing the pass.
Yeah.
They didn't need to.
Yeah, I like individual play calls. I agree. Like, there wasn't anything where I was like, what's going on here? But scheme wise, I don't know if I necessarily agree.
Like what do you disagree with? Because again, I think a lot defensively, I think it's just, we got to get used to it. That's what Manny Diaz is.
Well, hang on. We can just jump into defense because I have some thoughts on that I want to stream out. But offensively, I think I can't take credit for coming up with this. I saw it online, but like, they're trying to prove a point. They're just trying to say that we're going to run the ball, and that's what it's going to be, which is fine if you're playing Ohio. But when you're playing Purdue, I said it last week. I think we should have tried to open it up a little bit with some short passes.
When he said we did not do that in the second half. Like, we
finally did, but early on we did. And I think that was
and I think that's fine. I mean, we went into halftime with obviously the play at the end you might consider slightly lucky, but I mean, we went into halftime with a ton of momentum. I thought our offense looked decent in the first half, so I didn't mind the play calling at all.
Like, not individual play calling, and again, we did have a lead, but what I just was scratching my head a little bit about, like, it just came across as stubborn to me. But whatever. Defense, I do want to talk about a little bit more, though, because we've talked about this a lot, like, in our personal conversations. I don't know if we've ever talked about it, though, on the podcast. Does James Franklin put too much influence on his coordinators? I know we talked about it a lot last year with Yursich, and it seemed like, he was maybe kind of, boxed in a little bit. That's the impression that I got early on watching the defense.
I didn't see. I mean, I felt like that was a pretty traditional Manny Diaz defense. That's what I thought we were going to get from him. And
I don't think so, because we were not bringing that much pressure early on, which is what Diaz likes to do. And I think we were trying to play a bend but don't break, and it just wasn't his style.
Well, I think the issue, Matt, with I think Franklin hit out of this. I think the way Purdue runs their offense is very short, quick hitting passes. So I don't think we
Yeah.
can
But-
do too many blitzes unless we do a little twist on the D line.
Wait. So when I went back to rewatch this game, this is one of the things I was looking at. So I'm not an expert in breaking down defensive schemes or whatever, and I left some of these quick screens and swing passes out of it. But I counted 30 times throughout the game where we blitzed, and 29 times throughout the game in passing situations when we didn't blitz. So out of those 30 blitzes, 7 completions, 30 incompletions, and/or sacks. Against man coverage, it was 6 and 16 respectively. 6 completions, 6 incompletions. Against zone, it was 1 and 7 respectively. In the 29 non-blitzes, it was split for man, 9 completions, 9 incompletions. But against zone coverage, it was 11 completions and 0 incompletions. Every time we played that weak zone and just dropped our secondary back and didn't bring pressure, it was just dink and dunk across the whole field. And they did that. And that's what I think was happening early on. But then later in the game, when we really started to ratchet up the pressure, like you can look through the game notes, it was just incomplete. And that's what I think got us the ball back. Well, obviously at the end, that's what got us the ball back, and that's what helped us win the game.
I agree with Matt though with what he's saying. You definitely saw the DBs, especially on like those third downs. They're like playing like 10, 15 yards off the receivers, and it's like all they got to do is a quick slant and they're there. So I definitely saw that too.
And that was probably an adjustment too. Like early on, and I think they even mentioned it on the broadcast, we were getting beat inside on man coverage. Like we were not taking the right position, and the receivers were doing quick ends and getting us. But I feel like by the midway third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, it was almost just kind of like, screw it, we're bringing everybody. And that's what I think changed it.
Yeah, I like it. So. I just disagree. Like if Manny Diaz is known to be aggressive, but it's not like aggressive isn't playing cover 0 and sending the house every single play. So like I thought that entire game was exactly within a typical Manny Diaz. I do think offensively, but James Franklin said many times before he's not a real defensive minded guy. So I just don't think he puts as much influence on his defensive coordinators as the offensive coordinators.
So for that, going off what Matt said, how much do you chalk up to, the soft zone versus players game one? Again, like some of these transfers, like Trent said earlier, you can't account for them, not a lot of tape. I'm getting a little both ways. I mean, like, it's still week game one. These teams have been dealing with like only practice players. These defenses have been seeing the same guys every week. It's a new team week one. I don't know. I feel like you gotta give some leeway for that. Where
it to me, it was a weird game. I mean, there was times where our secondary, I was so disappointed in them because it was like, what are you guys doing? You're supposed to be a strength of ours. But then there was other series where it's like they were locked down. Like I don't think Purdue could have moved the ball if they wanted to. And it was that roller coaster. Every series, both sides. Offensively, I felt like there was times when I didn't think we'd get 3 yards. We were going 3 and out. And then we just marched down the field like 2 series later, they couldn't stop us. It was just whole game was up and down.
And not to get, you go, Matt.
No, go ahead, Winnie.
I was just saying not to get too off topic, but I know you guys were saying there was a lot of positives from this game, and I don't disagree with that. But I think it's hard to really, looking at next week, I think we're gonna obviously see some progress, and they're gonna improve on a lot of things. But I think there was so many things that were kind of hard to really put your finger on that it's gonna be like, I think we might still see some of the same things we're talking about right now going into or after the Ohio game, just because there was just a lot of like what you're saying, Trent, like some things it was like, oh wait, they did great this series, and then the next 2 series it was like, what are you guys doing? It's like the complete opposite of what you just did.
I even with the win, I have a bit of a course readjustment with this team now. Like from the moment the Outback Bowl ended last year, my thought was 2022 is not going to be much. Anything good that happens is extra. 2023, 2024 is where something special can happen. But then, probably because of this podcast, I talked myself into believing into the hype. Now, I have course readjustment. These guys are young. Maybe it still comes together, but they're young. They're going to make mistakes. Like we're just going to have to put up with it this year. Like it might be frustrating, but it's going to be what it's going to be. But going back to what you were saying, Trent, not to sound like James Franklin here, but where like there's no complimentary football. It just feels like again this year, every time the offense was moving the ball, the defense was giving up points. Every time the defense was locked down, the offense couldn't move the ball. We had like maybe 2 minutes of complimentary football that entire game. The end of the second half, the end of the first half, and obviously the end of the game. It's like, I mean, that's when it matters.
To me, I mean, I know last week I said I thought there was a chance we go out there and we beat Purdue handily. And I thought it was going to happen when we scored at the end of the halftime.
Yep.
We had all the momentum. And if our defense just comes out there and maybe not go 3 and out, but if we just come out, get a stop and get the ball back, I feel like we get any points there, whether it be 3 points, a touchdown, that game gets lopsided quick. Instead, they come down, go right down, they score, long drive, blows all the momentum we had. That touchdown we had at the halftime pretty much takes that off the board, and they're right back in it, and all the momentum's on their side. And from we just never recovered from that point forward in the second half after that long drive.
Yeah. We could never retake the momentum, and that was getting me frustrated. But like any big play we had, it was just like, all right, well, what are we gonna do? Turn it over. So
yeah.
But
all right, let's get into the good, bad, and ugly. We'll pick at some of this stuff a little more, I'm sure.
Yeah. Go ahead. You want to start, Trent?
Yeah. I mean, I'll start with
You're good.
My good here. So I will say my good was probably the freshmen. I'll generalize it. Can't say all the freshmen showed out, but what we've seen from, I think the big two were Singleton and Alar, and then I think Katron was better than expected. I mean, I know the coaches were talking him up, but I think Singleton was just getting so much hype that he was overlooked a little bit. We've seen that highlight clip, but he was a workhorse this weekend.
Yeah.
And then Drew Alar looked really good when he came in. Wasn't perfect. He had his moments, and then that big third down play that, he had the guy open, he could have ran. Wasn't perfect, but overall the future is bright. Sutton, I was probably a little disappointed in on the defensive line. He wasn't great. Abdul Carter was exciting.
Got
for
robbed, man.
Yeah,
horrible call.
He got robbed. So, but in that one play he was in, he looked good. I like the aggression.
He laid the lumber.
So yeah. I think my good for this week is the freshmen. Again, not perfect, but they are true freshmen, and what I think the future is looking good based on what we've seen in one game.
Yeah, I think they look like freshmen, but the good freshmen. There were some up, there were some down.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen their potential. And again, it's if we're starting at Ohio, it's probably a little easier game for a freshman to transition into. At Purdue on the road, national TV game, blackout environment. It's not an easy game to come into.
Especially for Aller, though, too. Like, you don't really expect to be going in the start of the second half of the first game.
Yeah.
I did think, Trent, to your point, quick, I thought he did a great job of feeling the pressure on that third down, stepping up, rolling out, and he just, you say he could have ran it. I thought there was, good pass still. It just got dropped. So
I have a question about Alar, but I have a feeling that we're going to be talking about quarterback a little bit later, so I'll put a pin in that for later. But just,
I mean, he had a good pass on to Tyler Warren there that was dropped, but his pass on the pass that he threw on the third down, he threw it behind him. It wasn't a very. It wasn't a
third down.
No, that was second down. I believe so. But either way, I mean, he really, there was no one there. He had the first down for a mile, and then he did throw it, and it wasn't a good throw.
He got confused by the man coverage and made an indecisive throw.
Mm-hmm.
But
I was more just impressed with the read of the pressure, stepping up, rolling out.
The ball he threw to Tyler Warren was just a perfect throw.
Perfect.
Probably more aggressive than I'd like to see, but I mean, he executed it to perfection. That has to be caught.
Let's go next.
Okay, you got it.
I mean, I'll take the low hanging fruit here since Trent didn't take it. My good Sean Clifford. I mean, I know this would be a media play here. Like, oh, it was Sean Clifford. He had a pick six to do a pick six. Listen, the man had 4 touchdown passes, 54% completion. He had gutsy fourth quarter drive to win us a game. If Clifford's not in there in the fourth quarter, we don't win that game. Like and again, don't forget, first half, we couldn't catch a ball. We couldn't catch COVID if we tried. We literally couldn't catch anything. I think Sean Clifford made the plays that he needed to get us in position to win that game.
I'm with
yes. The pick six,
I'm with Kyle here.
The pick six very horrible throw, overthrew him, air mailed him. He still outplayed O'Connell. He threw for less yards, but still 4 touchdowns, better completion percentage, and I think he was a more clutch quarterback than O'Connell, which is my opinion.
More clutch. Not low hanging fruit by any means, because I'm with you. I think Clifford. So during the game, I was probably on the same page as everyone else, where it's like, we can't keep doing this. We have to bring Alar in. But I rewatched the game play by play, and when I rewatched the game, it clicked with me. Like, take away that pick six, Clifford played a great game. That just overshadowed it. So many of his incompletions were either Wallace, which I'm sure that's going to be someone's bad, but Caden Wallace was absolutely terrible. I guarantee you, like 4 incompletions of Clifford's was just him throwing the ball at the ground for trying to get rid of the ball, because he has a defender in his face in 3 seconds because Caden Wallace got beat off the edge. And then the drops, they weren't just like 2-yard drops. They were drops that were 15, 20-yard pass drops. His completion percentage was probably a lot better than the stats appeared to show.
Yeah, he still threw for almost 290, and you think a few more catches, he probably has maybe 1 more touchdown and 5 or 6 more completions.
I count the pick six was just atrocious. Nothing can take that away, but take that away, and he had like 3 bad passes. Every quarterback's going to have bad passes.
You two done? You want to let someone else speak?
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. Let me preface this by saying I am not a Sean Clifford hater. Like, I'm probably rooting for him harder than I am rooting for any Penn State player I ever have in my life. Because with all the criticism, I want him to go out and just have a hell of a year. And yes, if you look at the stat line, he played a hell of a game. Career record for touchdowns. Like, if he has a 4-to-1 touchdown interception ratio the entire year, he might be in New York at the end of the year. I just don't know what to do. He's a mystery wrapped in an enigma. Like, he had a good stat line, but you can't, like, anyone that watched that game doesn't necessarily feel like he had a good game. And I
felt that way, but when I rewatched it, I didn't. I can't point to much. When I rewatched it, there's not much I could point to. That's on Clifford.
I did too. And you know what? I saw the pass protection outside of Caden Wallace was not that bad, but he was creating more pressure, I think, than was actually there. He was throwing balls off of his back foot. I think he missed reads.
But you know what? Joe Clapp pointed this out, and Gus Johnson pointed this out a lot. Our receivers at times were lazy. They were lazy.
Yes,
they would stop running. They were covered, and instead of trying to just make space and get open, they just gave up on routes. There's a lot of times where, okay, he forced a throw or whatever, but if no one's open, then what is he supposed to do?
Yeah. So all right, let me finish this thought that I was going with. I think a healthy Sean Clifford is still our best option. He was healthy in the first half, and he didn't play a Heisman first half, but he had 2 touchdowns, a running touchdown, gave us a commanding lead in a hostile environment first game of the week. You can't ask for more than that. But I just don't know if he can stay healthy throughout the year. He's been banged up in every season. Even if it was just cramps, he came out, and then it took him until that last drive to get it back.
Yeah, I don't think it was health. It seemed like more of an illness than like the cramps they were referring to seemed like they were maybe more like stomach cramps than they were like physical cramps.
He definitely got an IV, because if you noticed in the first half or the first drive when he came back, he had like the Band-Aid on the inside of his shoulder or on the inside of his elbow. So he definitely got an IV for something.
They'll inject you with anything they can during the game.
Yeah. So like,
it could be for pain.
Like that's just my concern. I still think Sean Clifford is our best chance to win. I'm still a Sean Clifford fan. I still think, good or bad, like I agree. Even good quarterbacks make bad plays during a game. My concern is that he's going to continue to get banged up throughout the year. And now, because Alar had, he didn't crack under the pressure of this first game, every time there's a bad pass, the fan base is just going to groan, put in Alar. That's what I'm concerned about.
Matt, I get what you're saying, but he fully redeemed himself.
He did. Yes. He did.
Last drive, as a we keep saying he's a 20th year quarterback. That final drive, using no timeouts, masterfully marching down the field, like that experience for Sean Clifford
I completely agree. Even in the game, when you look on Twitter and there are a bunch of fans going, "Oh, put Alar in for this last drive. Don't put Clifford in." Even watching the game in real time and probably having a higher, like Trent said, you feel more confident in the fact that Clifford didn't play well. I still didn't think you should put Alar in. My concern is just that, like, I don't think he's going to stay healthy, and I think there's going to be some rumblings this year. I don't, and he just always seems like it's a liability at the worst possible time. That interception was at the worst possible time.
It was.
But
when trying to preview the game, we knew that going in this game it was going to be hot. Multiple players had cramps, so cramps are cramps. Like you can't really do anything for that. Like, you guys take hydrates. It's just like it is what it is.
Yeah. I honestly, the fact that he didn't get injured on that nasty.
It was.
Wrapped up tackle. Yeah. I mean, I think that because most people assumed it was just something related to that play that he didn't feel in the moment, but as he was playing, like, was popping up. But I personally, in that final drive, I'm with you, Matt. I would say the majority of the people I was watching the game with at the time wanted Alar in. I did not. I thought that's in that moment is where you need to, like I said, Alar made that that goof on third down where he probably could have had the first down. There's nothing saying Alar coming in there inexperienced wouldn't have thrown a pick six in the same way. I guess the argument could be is if the season's over, then I'm probably just going to say, all right, why are we sticking with Clifford at this point? We have nothing to lose. But at this point, we still have too much to lose, in my opinion, to throw an inexperienced quarterback in there. And, it could go two ways. You could also destroy Drew Alar's confidence by putting him in there when he's not ready in a big time moment. It's different when you have to come in because Clifford gets hurt. And if anything, it's a good feeling knowing that we have a competent backup that could come in if need be and not run into an Iowa situation.
I think.
I agree with everything you said, Trent. I think there's the one thing that we hopefully all can agree on, though he finished strong. I think that we saw Clifford, two different quarterbacks, first half, second half, excluding that last drive. Clifford was two different people in that game.
That last drive, I even wrote it down because Gus Johnson's lost a lot of football.
Though, that's the only thing. I agree with everything else you said. It's just he seemed like he was, like, to Matt's point, he was two different quarterbacks in that game.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt that he did. Yeah. But Gus Johnson said one of the best drives I've ever seen.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I
don't disagree with that.
So let me clarify my point, because I'm not disagreeing with anything you guys are saying. Like, I don't want to make it sound like I'm the one that's on the opposition here. I think Sean Clifford should finish the year unless he gets hurt or, like, the rails completely fall off. Like, even if the season's over, he's been here for so long. He's put his, body on the line for Penn State. He deserves to finish it. I think he does. Yeah. My whole thing is, I think you're just going to have to settle in and accept the good with the bad. You're going to get those amazing plays, but you're also going to get that interception where you're like, what the hell? And I just hope that I hope it doesn't happen at the worst possible time. And I think he's gonna have issues staying healthy.
I have to say, for that final drive, I think it was like 6 or 7 for like 70-some yards. I think it's what it amounted to. But all right, before we make this like a 2-hour podcast, when you're Matt, what's your good? Because otherwise,
all right, I'll keep it short. I'll do a little bit off the wall. Special teams, I think that was a nice surprise. Barney and Moore replaced Stout really well. 4 punts inside the over 50 yards, 3 inside the 20-yard line. Sahadak and Nuosu, I think, were good on kickoffs. It's not a touchback every single time, but not the end of the world. And I think Parker Washington was a nice surprise in the punt return game. Doesn't have breakaway speed, but he's shifty, and if his elbow's not down, he has that big return. So special teams was a nice surprise for me.
I got a soft spot for our fat kicker, so I'm all for it.
Just to keep it rolling, I thought Brenton Strange. I like, if I had to pick two, I thought Joey Porter Jr. was awesome on the defensive side, but Brenton Strange I thought was great in the first half. They didn't really utilize him that much in the second half, but he had a great catch and run that I think surprised all of us.
That was a great play by Clifford to roll out, to extend the play. That was a great awareness by Strange and to break the tackle. That's what everyone expected from Strange.
I'll tell you what was unexpected about that play was the fact that we even attempted it.
Tell me about it.
truthfully,
I love it.
I love it. I love the aggression.
No, so do I. But traditionally, I don't think we see that from Franklin. Like the fact that we got out of there without giving up points at the end of the half, I thought was a win in itself. We were giving up 3 no matter what there, possibly 7 to go in that and to go into halftime losing, and instead we get the ball back, and then we gave it a shot, but then after it didn't really go anywhere at first, I thought we just quit, and then there was like 16 seconds or something left when we threw that final play. I was really surprised we didn't just take a knee there and go in the half.
I think if everything in that final play like clicked. I think the protection was okay, wasn't fantastic, but Clifford rolling out again, Strange stepping out but coming back in, and the blocking downfield, like you had Lambert Smith down there. Everyone was blocking for Strange, rumbling down the sideline there. I mean, I think that was a great play altogether, great team play.
Yeah, big boy could move.
Yeah.
Hey,
that's what I was saying.
All right, so we shifting to the bad.
Yeah.
Wants to go first here?
Frank could go first.
Go the same order.
All right. So I'll go with Johnny Dixon. I was really disappointed with Johnny Dixon. I feel like they targeted him a lot because they found a weakness in him, and he had some coverages where he just got beat off the ball. He had some coverages where he got beat and then resorted to some handsy plays and got called for PI twice. Realistically, rewatching it, there was probably 2 other plays where he probably should have got called for PI. But going back to that roller coaster, he also had that giant sack to end the game. Not to end the game, but pretty much almost end the game there in the final drive for Purdue. So, and then Jair Brown on the same page, like Jair Brown, just really non-existent. It was a name you didn't hear much. Maybe a good thing, but he really wasn't forceful in a lot of plays, which is not what I expected from him.
Yeah, if I'm Terry Smith this week, I'm taking oven mitts. I'm putting them on all my defensive backs, and I'm duct taping them, and they got to play that way. Mm-hmm. Like, oh my God, they're so handsy. I get that's the way like college defensive backs are. Like that's just the way it is. But they just broke the back on some of those drives. Like you think you're going to get off the field, and then it's just like
not only get off the field, but Winnie, you talked about Joey Porter Jr. I mean, he dropped a pick 6 that he could have caught and crawled into the end zone. I mean so we're not talking about just getting off the field. We're talking about putting points on the board defensively. And then he dropped another one, but that's that roller coaster where he dropped those 2 picks at the same time. He was shut down for the majority of the second half.
And he recovers that fumble though on the sideline somehow and stays in.
Zakee Wheatley. He does. Zakee Wheatley's another one. Like there was moments where he just looked terrible, and then he had that huge fumble. Like there was so many ups and downs for every player this past game.
It's because they're young. They just buckle in. It's going to be that kind of year.
Yeah. But the raw talent there, and like I would rather see, again, 2-way road here. I'd rather see my young defensive players aggressive than have them like be 10 yards off the guy and let them go for 30-yard slant route. I mean, again, that happened.
Oh, we saw that.
It did happen in this game, but I mean, I'd rather see someone go up and try to make a play than not. Even if you're holding, even if you're, I don't know. I'd rather see that than not.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go
for what you got.
I feel like there's like real low-hanging fruit again, like the running game. Our running game. We had 32 carries, 98 yards, 3.1 yards per carry. Looks like the same crap as last year. Only rushing touchdown was the Sean Clifford QB 6 from 2-yard line, which I mean Brenton Strange again like pushed him into the end zone there. But I don't know. Last episode Trent was saying how we made our bets like over 130 yards rushing for the team. Like I took the over optimistically. Couldn't even break 100. So
I remember specifically saying under. I hope we get over 100.
Baby steps. I'm gonna say under. I think we better get over the 100-yard mark. I think
did it 98 yards.
Yeah. Maybe I should. I'm gonna make it Penn State rushing yards at 100 from now on until we break it.
Yeah. There is some reason to be optimistic though. Like I thought that the run blocking is better. It's still not great, but what it needs to be, they need to get to the second level more, and then those running backs need to break tackles. Like Kevon Lee is not going to be that kind of guy that breaks tackles, but there were a couple times that the young guys, if they break one tackle, they're gone.
Nick Singleton, his first handoff was almost I thought there was a chance that was going to the house.
Yeah,
I think it's the style, because I think Nick Singleton, when he was in high school at Mifflin, they
Yeah.
run a lot of from under center, and you even saw that,
He
when
ran
they're
a
under
triple option
center,
at
he
Mifflin.
he
Yeah.
rips off 9 yards or whatever, 7 yards, and then the next play they hand him the ball and he gets stuffed. And that's
I do agree to a point, Winnie, and not even just it's the delayed handoff to me. It's getting the ball.
Momentum
The running back is standing still. The defensive line's
Yes.
getting that head start, and I understand part of me just thinks our offensive line's not good enough to create that whole like. One of the things of a delayed handoff is you give time for that blocking to take place, and for a whole, it just doesn't happen. So I think full steam momentum might be a better option for us.
And Kevon Lee really struggles with that though, because he just doesn't have that burst off the gun. Like that's the other thing I really noticed when we were watching the game. Like it almost kind of feels like he's taking the handoff in quicksand. Like he's a good power back. He's good to get you 3-4 yards when you need it, but like I don't know.
If there's a silver lining, Purdue only had 70 yards rushing. So
I thought
whatever
Purdue
that's
kind of
worth.
shot themselves in the foot.
They weren't trying.
Yeah. At the very end, it's like they totally gave up on it. And I was kind of surprised because I thought whoever would really run the ball in this game would win. And I think if Purdue ran it at the end, they would have won. So thank goodness they didn't.
Just go with that. O'Connell almost had 60 pass attempts. It's just nuts.
Yeah.
Matt, do you have a bad?
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna kind of piggyback off of you, Coco, because mine was similar. Running back rotation, like I get the philosophy of it. Like I understand it and I agree with it. You want your backs fresh, not only in the game throughout the season, but like the whole thing is Franklin always says, wait till one of them gets hot and then go from there. No one ever got a chance. And I think it did get better.
Good one.
It did get better throughout the game. Like I think the rotation works like how they were doing second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, where you have a running back start and then they bring in Ford as a change of pace on a passing down. Or in that final drive, Lee starts, they bring in Allen as a change of pace, gets 9 yards, they bring Lee back in, he catches a touchdown pass. Where I don't think it works is when it's just so predictable. Like you literally, Trent, you watch the game too. You can go through and it's like, oh, well, here comes Lee. Oh, here comes Singleton. Here comes Allen. They literally went through that rotation with one change. Singleton came in once before Lee. But they did the same. Lee had 4 drives. Singleton had 4 drives. Allen had 3 drives. Yeah. I just don't know how anyone's supposed to get hot when you get one drive and then you're off the field for 20 minutes of game time. So
I agree with Matt. This was actually my ugly because I like you said, the running backs can't get hot. And in my opinion, what Franklin should do is pick 2 running backs and just go with them. If it's Lee and Singleton, that's great. If it's Lee and Allen, that's fine. And that should be your 2 backs. You can't rotate guys like that.
I know what you're saying.
Plays to get hot.
My only counter to that would be, I guess, 2 things technically. One, this way we can sort of keep everyone happy, especially if you're trying to have more than one, a Katron Allen and a Nick Singleton. Keep them happy because you do need a guy like Kevon Lee there as well. Yes, so I think you need to keep everyone happy. But 2, I'd be curious to hear from the running back perspective on, do they feel like it is, because I feel like running is a little different trying to get in a groove. A lot of times the hole's there or it's not there. I guess the reads and things like that you could get more comfortable with, but I'd be curious to see, because like Franklin was asked this directly in his press conference after the game, and he pretty much said like he understands the question, but if they felt in any way that it would be different, then they wouldn't do it, and they just don't feel like there'd be a difference.
See, to me though, I think that's Franklin's problem. He's a good players coach, but that's the thing. You can't make people happy. You got to go with, if you want to win, you got to go to win. And I don't think keeping everyone happy is what's going to win games for Penn State. I get it. Allen's a great back, but you need to just go with a guy.
Keeping everyone happy, but if they're all like, if they're good and they're all productive, it's different. Yeah. Like we're not trying to keep a 4-string happy. Like a Keziah Holmes, which I think it's apparent now why he transferred. It was purely because we have four solid back. And Devin Ford, I mean, Devin Ford has some critical plays when he came in that were huge for the momentum of the game. So I can't point to 2 of those backs and be like, oh, I don't want to see Devin Ford out in the field, or I don't want to see Kevon Lee out in the I don't mind the rotation.
But to me, like, I don't think we're the only team with good running backs. And I feel like we're the only team that's going to be rotating 4 running backs. And I just don't think it's great. I mean, from playing the sport that's like going in for a couple plays and then coming out and then waiting for like 3 series to go by and coming back in, like you get hot and then you sit out and you get cold. And Matt was saying about these guys basically being in quicksand. It's like, no wonder your legs are freaking, you're just stood on the sideline for 30 minutes waiting for your time to go back in.
I think a bigger issue is getting the ball standing still. And like we talked about that just before. I think that's the bigger issue with our running game. You get 90% of the time they're getting the ball standing still and then having to try to create something out of nothing.
As we have this conversation, Noah Cain's just running in for a touchdown against LSU. So just fun little side note. But
good for him. Good for him. Good for Keziah Holmes.
No, Cain's on LSU.
Yeah, I said for LSU.
Oh, I thought it against LSU. My bad.
Yeah. No, I agree with the running back rotation. Like as philosophy, I just think it needs to be more dynamic. So anyway, that was my bad. When you got
why can't we do the running back rotation, but maybe not every single? Why can't they go 2 series at a time?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
And then if a guy gets hot, leave him in for a third series or so.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So, Winnie, what's your bad?
My bad. After I've talking all about that, I lost my bad. Oh, receivers. I thought that even though Parker Washington actually played pretty well, I thought that he really needs to get open more. I know they were probably doubling him and stuff like that, but if you're going to be the number one guy, you got to find ways to get open. And there was obviously drops and things like that we already hinted on, but my big thing is more just seeing Parker get open, because I think when the ball is in his hands, he's a dynamic player and he can definitely pick up some yards, even though he likes to kind of run backwards and do all kinds of crazy stuff. But we talked about the drops, and his hands are as good as gold in my opinion. So if he could, hopefully find ways to get open, which
he had a really big drop though. He had a really big drop, as well. Which isn't like him. Wide open in the flat, literally just 15 yards before the nearest defender, and just couldn't reel it in.
And
very common for him.
They definitely could have been like, definitely spying on, Parker more, but it opened up, that opened up Mitchell Tinsley more. And he was one of my goods if Sean was taken, but I mean, he went seven.
Since no one mentioned him, we'll talk about it quick. Mitchell Tinsley was unreal. I mean, by far the stud. We'll see how the season plays out, but I know. I mean, you said it last game, Matt.
Yeah.
Last episode,
he had 7 receptions, 84 yards, a touchdown, and then that 28 yards on the final drive, like where he made the one defender miss, and then
huge,
enormous,
huge, and he seemed to be Clifford's favorite target. Looked for him the most, and he seemed to be the most clutch in times. We'll see. I mean, he has the potential to be wide receiver 1. Maybe Parker Washington is the second wide receiver on this team.
We're talking about the transfer
how it
portal.
plays out.
Talk about the transfer portal. There's a guy playing at Western Kentucky. Can he really play against Power 5 competition?
For sure,
absolutely.
He looked good in space too. Like he was open more than he even got the ball. So
and Trent, I think this goes back to what you said in the beginning, that it's week 0, week 1. You don't really know what to expect, and now there's going to be some tape on these guys, so it'll be interesting as we go through the season how these guys progress and adapt their play.
When he going off what you said, I also feel like Keandre didn't really get open too much, but when he did cut the touchdown pass, made a great play to stay on his feet and burst it in the end zone. So again, is that going back to the whole roller coaster? Maybe make one bad play, a few bad plays, bam, go up touchdown. I don't know.
Good finish for sure. Good finish for sure.
I think honestly, the roller coaster thing, just like every single player. Tyler Warren's another one. Tyler Warren had that huge drop, and then that catch he made in the final drive coming across, just a bullet coming across the middle, took a shot, stayed on his feet, like completely made up for that drop pass.
Yeah. Can our thumbnail be for the episode all of us on a roller coaster going and then go?
It should be. It should be. Like
there you go.
Well,
start working on it.
One of us threw up like we were on a roller coaster. So
I'm not gonna say who.
No, I just can't.
What did I give it away?
All right. Well, actually, here we'll do counterclockwise because I had a similar ugly. My ugly was the Butterfinger drops. We kind of already touched on it. 5 on offense, 3 for Keandre Lambert-Smith, 1 for Parker Washington, 1 for Tyler Warren, then 3 on defense. Joey Porter Jr. had 2 interceptions that he dropped. And then Keaton Ellis dropped 1 on that last drive too. Like some of them were momentum killers. Like we talked about.
Would have given us the over.
Yeah.
Who's that one guy that took under 1.5 turnovers? Because I really in that
You're
game
lucky.
we should have
Should have had
4.
like 6.
Yeah. Like, the
No.
game should have been over by half.
Yeah. And Matt, you mentioned
Yeah.
Keandre Lambert-Smith again. He had
Yeah.
such critical drops, and then he had that huge touchdown where he broke a tackle, made a guy miss, and it's like,
see,
Yeah.
this is what I was trying to say in the beginning, though. Like you were kind of hinting at too, Trent. It's like there's goods, there's bads, there's uglies for almost every single one of these players. So as a coach, I think it's going to be difficult to really take away, something that you could really push into the next week.
If
Exactly, pinpoint
if
it.
you watch his touchdown catch again, he really turned on the afterburners. Like he left them in the dust.
That's what he brings. I think, like I said earlier, I think we should have been using the screen game more and earlier in the game. Like he could get 10 yards off the little screen where it looks like there's nothing there because it's just that fast. Like
I'm not a fan of the wide receiver screen, so
yeah, we know you would still be running
I'd rather run the ball.
yeah, if it was up to you, we'd be running the veer. So
well, I mean,
Wing
Trent,
T.
we got 4 good running backs. Hey, we did see that on the sneak with Cliffords. Strange really, that man's strong as hell. It just pushed him in.
I love that new rule where they met a few years ago. We can have the running backs and fullbacks push and
why shouldn't you be able to?
Yeah, just can't pull him.
push Penn State edition. It was
We'll
so
have
fun.
Strange is gonna be
funny
pushing
that
this roller
Lionheart-
coaster.
It was so
No,
funny
if-
that Lionheart and Bush were both there, dude.
Yeah.
That just made it.
if you watch that, our O-line gets a little bit of a push, but like Bretton Strange just like pushes him
Hey,
a
all
yard
the
and a half
way.
himself.
He launched
All the
him.
work.
All right, Coco, what do you have for ugly?
My ugly is actually not an ugly for us. Jeff Brom's clock management. Oh my god, we talked about the beginning, but
Atrocious.
we're thinking that Franklin has clock management issues. I mean, look at it here. So we had they give us the ball back with 2:50 left to play. After their last 2 drives, they threw the ball 14 out of 14 plays. They threw the ball. Sorry, out of 15 plays, 14 were passes. And the fact that we had the ball left with 2 timeouts left, and we had to use it in our final drive, it's just screams like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I get being aggressive and like the running game wasn't working. Like they only rushed like 70 yards, but still, oh my god, like, dude, what are you doing? I'll take it though. Take it.
It works for me when I do it in Madden. I always just throw the ball at the end of the game.
Yeah.
But
I think one of the most overlooked things there, besides like not running the clock out itself, was not forcing us to use more timeouts. They ran the ball and we had to use 1 timeout, but having 2 timeouts changes the 2-minute drive. But you could just be way more aggressive, throw
It's an
across the
eternity.
middle. You could do things that you just can't do without
Your
timeouts.
whole playbook's open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
I think one underlooked thing though is again they were passing the ball. They're I'm not sure the guy's name for Purdue, but that it was initially rolled to catch, it hit the ground.
Oh yeah,
That would have been.
I was surprised they
and again,
That'd have been
they
a nail in the
overturned that.
coffin.
that was just lucky, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
had the
Yeah.
pressure there. He just threw that up. We were just as close to deflecting it or being in the area as it's just right place. It was just pure luck. I'm glad it got overturned. There was a chance
I'm not
that they
upset.
didn't, but I was pretty confident that they'd overturn that. I mean, I thought it was pretty cut and clear.
Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Just because they called it a catch, I thought they would stick with it.
Yeah. Well, I'm still running on the work curse theory, so I wouldn't have shocked me anyway. So,
Yeah.
TW, what you got?
My ugly, I'm gonna go non-football related here, was the commercials and just time of the game overall.
Oh
I mean,
my, it's so
Yeah.
long.
the game didn't end till after midnight. The commercials, I rewatched the full coverage of the game. That includes the intro, all the replays, every single second, excluding commercials, and it was 2 hours and 50 minutes, which tells me that there was over an hour's worth of commercials for that. It's too much. And my thing is like, is this going to get worse with these new TV contracts? Is this how they're going to recuperate some of this?
Yeah.
It felt like they would go to commercial and then like there'd be 2 plays and we're back at commercial.
It's that NFL model where they do the kickoff
Yeah.
and then they go back to commercial. It's like, come on.
I when we get back to in-game Penn State games, my least favorite person in the stadium is that dude with the little red hat on, like winding up like to tell us when they're off a commercial. Hate that guy.
Yeah, because
my dad was always like, I swear the guy was just out here. Like, what are we doing?
I mean, there's times the offense is on the field, the defense is on the field. They're lined up, and the ref's just standing over that ball, and the red hat guys on the field. It feels like forever. and it's just like the game's ready to be played, just waiting on TV.
Maybe just behind Iowa fans is the guy in the red hat for me. That's my crap list. So
that's
but
gotta be tough as a player too, just to sit there like you said.
And it happens everywhere too. Like we were just watching the games yesterday. All those noon games ran over into the 3:30 time slots, and like you never see that happen in the NFL. Like the NFL is a well-oiled machine. When the 1 o'clock games are over, the 4 o'clock games are ready to go in like 10 minutes. So
and I think it hurts because the clock stops a lot more in college, leading to a lot more times to stop the clock, therefore have more commercials.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
About time you stepped up. Winnie, what you got?
My ugly was what we had talked about with the running back rotation. Sorry, I'm like forgetting what I was even saying.
Yeah,
the running back rotation was my ugly.
You did say that.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Spark the conversation.
How are we doing on time? Do we want to talk any bit about the other games that happened briefly, or we want to just skip?
Real brief.
Yeah.
Ohio State did not look super impressive. Although I thought Notre Dame looked better than people were giving them credit for. So we'll see how Ohio State plays out.
The only issue, they also lost Smith and Jigma for the game. So again, they're missing a key player for 90% of the game.
I have a little bit of a different impression from that game. Like, yes, there are two things you have to factor in. One, they did lose in Jigba, and they had Fleming out for a good bit of the game too. And also Ohio State always has those like struggles early on in the year. But the thing that I noticed was, and Ryan Day even talked about it after the game, they were determined to run the ball out and win that game. I think if they wanted to open it up, they could have, and they probably could have put that game away sooner. So I think in years past, that's the game that Ohio State loses early on. I think it says a lot that they won that and did it in a style that's not even their primary choice. So they didn't look the best, but that concerns me a little bit moving forward.
I have two other takes quickly on some other games, and they actually have two additional bonus uglies that I have. First one, Iowa's offense. We talked about at the beginning that there's no offense. That was just putrid. If you told me that like Iowa's defense outscored their offense, I'd be like, okay, I'm not shocked. But the fact is that like it was just special teams, and it was a field goal and 2 safeties to get their 7 points. Yeah. It is just ugly. That just put a nail through your eye. Ugly.
And people thought we had nepotism going on when Joe had Jay as the quarterback's coach. Oh my God, Brian Ferentz needs to be fired.
My other one was the East Carolina kicker against NC State. This guy what was his name? Owen, I think it was Owen Daffer, missed a game-tying PAT, and then missed the game-winning field goal at the end of the game. I think in the end, college kickers stay undefeated with how bad they are in clutch spots. You don't see it in the NFL, which is so funny.
Real quick, and then we can move on. Probably best game of the weekend that I seen was that North Carolina Appalachian State.
Oh my God, fantastic!
Unreal finish. Probably like 6 different times on. It was just insane. Every time you thought it was over, there's no chance. They somehow scored again, and then that wide open 2-point conversion to win it.
It's so funny how the over in that game was like 57 or 58 points, and both teams hit themselves. And what Appalachian State's for like 40 points in the fourth quarter alone. That was just a nuts game. North Carolina, Swiss cheese defense. That was just when he's a youth football Wilson team can go and run the ball against North Carolina.
Set it up for me.
I think Florida Utah lived up to the billing too. It kind of got lost in the shuffle with Ohio State, like that game still being entertaining, but that was a good game. Anthony Richardson had some nice plays.
Yeah, there was a lot of. I mean, the backyard brawl was great too. I mean, same time slot as us, so we beat them in ratings, which was nice to see, I guess. But subtle dig at Pitt. But anyways, I wish we could have watched that game. I said that last week as well. I wish that wasn't on the same time as our game was, because I didn't get to watch it. It was on a second TV. Just when I got a chance to look over, I did. But I thought that game lived up to it as well.
Oh, and Nebraska looked awful again. They almost lost to North Dakota, but they won. So Scott Frost is good for another week.
By multiple scores, they won. They pulled it out. But it was touch and go there for a while. So, all right, very briefly too. So breaking news on Friday, college football playoff is expanding to 12 teams. Looks like it's going to be top 4 teams get a bye, 5 through 12 play an opening round with the upper seeds getting a home game. What are our thoughts on that, guys?
It's about time.
I'm excited for it.
I thought we'd go to 8 before we went to 12, but I sort of do like 12 better than 4, and I'm most excited about the opportunity to potentially have home games. I think that's a major incentive. Obviously, the bye is a major incentive, so there's still that incentive for the top 4. And then after that, the next 4 major incentive to get that first home game. And I said this to Matt just before, but I'd probably rather be the 5th seed than the 4th seed. Like I'd rather that home game than the bye.
I agree. And before the podcast, we were saying how
being a selfish fan.
If this playoff format was in since inception, we'd make 4 out of the 8 playoffs. So
I think a team like Penn State, we have to be thrilled with it, right? I mean, to crack the top 4 is probably unrealistic for us anytime soon, but top 12, sure.
Hey, more seats at the table, more games to watch, more entertainment, and obviously still way better than the BCS format. So it's still, anything's better than that.
Part of me is a little worried. Like, I mean, Josh Pate's a convincing man. So whenever he talks about this, like, I'm always kind of like, I don't know, maybe it will ruin the regular season a little bit more. But I just always think about how it feels in like the end of October or beginning of November when you lose that second game. And it's like, man, like what are we even fighting for the rest of this year? Now we have something to fight for,
But with 12 teams, I mean, I feel like if you go 9-3, you're maybe top 15, you have like 2 tough losses or whatever. Like, you're fighting for a top 12 spot.
Well, and honestly, I think going to 12 sort of does. I think the reason they went to 12 was to make you could get that 14 bye, which makes the top 4. I mean, more or less, that's one less playoff game you have to win. It's like an automatic win in a playoff game. It's huge. So that top 4 still matters a lot. So I think that brings relevancy. And then the way they set it up with like the highest ranked conference champions makes the conference games more relevant. And then honestly, what I think is good for college football, and I don't think Josh Pate talks about this enough, is like the fact that some of these now we're seeing players sit out New Year's 6 games. Like if they're not in the playoffs, they're sitting out. Where now the 12th ranked team players aren't sitting out in a playoff game. So I think that's an overlooked factor.
Yeah. I think it helps the bowls. Like I think the lower tier bowls might suffer a little bit more, but they're already kind of in that position, like playoff or no playoffs. So I think hopefully it will be a net good. Like it's going to give a lot more fan bases a lot of reasons to be excited at the end of the season. So
I don't think we talk about this too much. It's gonna be ad nauseum. I mean, the initial voting was 2026, maybe up 2024. We don't know. We have plenty of time to talk about it when it happens.
Yeah, so just keep throwing us likes and subscribe so we can keep the podcast going and talk about it when it gets here. So
I was gonna say, Matt, to your point,
Wayne.
Do you think the NIL will help with any of those lesser bowls though?
I don't know. Like
no,
I don't know. I don't know those lesser bowls what they're going to be able to give a player to stay. Like I don't. You're gonna be talking a couple $1,000s for chance to ruin a couple million.
How about the PSU Tailgate Talk at Veterans Memorial Stadium Bowl? We can do something.
The Tailgate Talk.
Oh, wordy.
What's our incentive? What can we offer? I think winning conference is like
when he spend the day with Coco.
When he gets some
mic and drink his beer.
A day with Coco sounds pretty good.
All right, we better get to the last call here before we have a 2-hour podcast.
Yeah. All right, who wants to go first?
I'll go quick. Keep last call short today. Will Penn State crack the top 25 this week?
No,
I don't think so. There wasn't a lot of top 25 teams that at least lower top 25 teams that lost.
Yeah. I could, if we do, I think we get 24, 25. I mean, I think if the voters give us credit for opening with Purdue and going in there and getting a win in Big Ten play to start the season, I don't see why we couldn't.
Do you think if we would have blown them out of the water, we're ranked?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
but
you just think it was such a close game?
I mean, the spread was 3.5. I think it played out how most people expected it to. That's all I
can go here quick. So as we talked before, Mitchell Tinsley, Brenton Strange, Kendra Lambert-Smith, and Kevin Lee each had a receiving touchdown during the game. Who at the end of the year, who's to be our leading receiver in touchdowns this year? Was all said and done.
Mitchell Tinsley.
Because remember, Parker didn't have a receiving touchdown this game, so he still has some time too.
based on what I seen in the first game, I can't not say Mitchell Tinsley. I mean, he looked the best. I'm hoping that, maybe teams focus on him and it opens up some opportunities, but I have to say Mitchell Tinsley.
I'm going to go with Tinsley too, but I think, like you said, Trent, if teams start the game plan him a little bit more, it's going to hopefully open up these other guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking the opposite now. I feel like Tinsley had a breakup game, so now they're going to focus on Parker. So it's going to be a flip-flop all season. Who has a hot hand?
That's
so I think
fair.
maybe Parker.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
take it.
You didn't give me that option to pick, so. All right, my last call was going to be about Tinsley before we started talking about whether he was going to be, wide receiver 1 at the end of the year. I think we kind of already can show our leanings there. So I'll bring it back to the question I said I had about Alar. So I was listening to Cover 3 podcast this morning, their recap from the week, and Tom Fornelli said that he felt like Drew Alar gave the offense a spark when he was in there. Do you guys agree with that? Because I think he did well. I think he did really well for being a true freshman, not expecting to play, hostile environment, whatever. I don't necessarily know if I'd go as far to say he gave us a spark. So what do you guys think about that?
Oh, he looked like, he had that raw talent. I don't think it was a spark. I feel like Sean Clifford could have done the same exact thing that he did. Threw one bad pass, had good passes. I don't know.
Yeah, he had a pass out in the flat. He had the nice Tinsley throw for 15 yards, but the Tyler Warren drop. He can't do anything about that. And then we talked about the third down play there that he had the first down, whether it be by passing or throwing, and didn't execute on either of them. So I don't know about a spark based on what he had, like one series, but if he moved the chain one time, is that a spark? It's hard to say.
Yeah.
I do like Tom Fornelli. I like Tom Fornelli. He's also super funny on Twitter. He used to worry about his Illinois Illini losing to Indiana before saying we need a spark on offense. He's a big Illini fan.
Well, now that you called him out, he's never going to come on the podcast. Way to go.
Oh, I love Tom. No, I just said love Tom Fornelli. Super funny.
To me, I was going to say that I wouldn't even say it was really a spark. If anything, I think it did the opposite. I think it caused more chaos with him going in, just because I feel like after that whole second half, like I said, the game plan kind of changed from the first half. So
I think that's more of a fan base reaction, though, right? I don't think him coming in had any effect on the coaching staff or players. I think it's more the fan base's reaction is, all right, he looked good for 3 plays. He's the next big thing. Bring him in. I don't think that's running.
I don't think there was enough of a sample size for us to really say that he went out there and crushed it or he did horrible. I think what he did was great, but I think like I said, it caused more chaos him coming in than I would say a spark.
It makes me feel good that we have a competent backup, and
far
better than what our backups looked like last season.
Yeah, but that's not saying much. So
no.
Winnie, what's your last call?
All right, my last call. Would you ever be? Oh, it's a would you rather. I should say this. Would you rather be a ref in college football or a head coach?
Definitely a head coach. I don't want to be an official.
I don't know. I think the official would be kind of cool.
No, you you're never praised as an official. You're only hated.
I think
plus it's not even a full-time job. You still got to do other stuff. So yeah, head coach.
Well, I think we're definitely a pro John O'Neill podcast here, right?
Thank God John O'Neill's retired. How did we not lead that off to start the show? Why did we not have an emergency pod?
That's Matt's
Thank
favorite.
God.
John,
I almost got my now wife evicted from her apartment for the Iowa game in 2019 because I was yelling at John O'Neill so much. So thank God he is gone. Good riddance. Have fun in the NFL.
I'd rather be a head coach.
100%. He's going to be like an assistant or something, isn't he?
No, he's going to be a referee coach in the NFL because I didn't think the NFL officiating could get any worse.
My question, I thought he was going to be like a positions coach or something from what I understood. That's why I was kind of posing the question, would you rather be a coach or an official?
I'm not a big blame the referee guy, but I hate John O'Neill with a passion. So that tells you. These guys, especially Mawini here, loves to blame the referees for every little thing
never
wrong.
Never.
One
last thing I will say.
I specifically can blame John O'Neill for at least minimum 5 blown calls against Penn State. And I know there's like 20 more, but there's like definitely 5 that you can easily just point out from John O'Neill.
Can we say that the I think the rule needs to be looked at a little bit more for targeting, because I feel like the hit on Clifford was more of an ejectable offense than the targeting call. I mean, that's just what.
I think like
the hit on Clifford, I think, is worthy of a penalty. I didn't think it was
the twist is what
I didn't think
what.
But I didn't think the twist was like malicious. Like to me, it was just like natural. Like it didn't look that intentional to me. I didn't think it was bad as some people made it out to be. Honestly,
I feel like putting everything in slow motion makes it look worse. But when it going off your targeting, I think it needs to transition to a flagrant 1, flagrant 2, like in the NBA. Like if you're going head hunting, you're gone, ejection. But if it's unintentional, if a QB sliding and like you can't stop yourself, like people can tell like if you're pulling off or not, or if you're just like you want to spear this guy, make it 15 yards, whatever, but keep the guy in the game.
Well, and also like last night in that Ohio State game, that one play where their linebacker tripped over his own player's foot and ran into Buckner, and they reviewed it for targeting. Okay, fine. But after you see two different angles, you see clearly tripped. It took them like 5 minutes to review that. Like, what is going on? Like, no wonder the games take 4 hours.
I think now you'll see a lot more hurdles now. Like, because they know guys have to go low to, stay away from the helmet to helmet. So now you see a lot more hurdles occurring. I personally think it should be like exactly what Kyle said. Just if it's intentional, if you're fully leaving your feet and launching, that's targeting, that's ejection. But if it's just something that's unintentional, 15-yard penalty. If you get 2 of them, then you're ejected.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we wanted to do a show under 50 minutes. We're over an hour, so I think we're going to wrap it up.
Per usual.
That's the Tailgate Talk way. So, all right. I hope next week we're going to have a little bit of shorter show. It's not as big of a game, hopefully not as much of a roller coaster. So just Winnie. Well, I think the big conversation is going to be whether or not Winnie actually shows up for the game. So
I'm going to be there.
We'll see about that.
I'll be there. Brandon Bushy-tailed.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. So stay tuned. Ohio preview coming up later in the week. We'll be back. Follow us on our socials. Follow us on YouTube. Drop questions at PSU TailgateTalk@gmail.com. We'll be back. We are Tailgate Talk.